This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q1043.
All right, welcome back. It's Jonathan Clark in the studio with a music industry impresario, I will call him, a producer of events, manager of the Allman Brothers at one point, Greg Allman too, Courtney Love, among others, and also the late Jeff Buckley. The new book, Jeff Buckley, From Hallelujah to the Last Goodbye. His name is Dave Lory. How are you, man?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
We go back a ways. Let's mention some book signings. There's a City Winery book signing in Manhattan. Is that this coming Sunday, June 3rd?
Yeah, it's June 3rd. I'm actually doing Q&As with sessions with the fans across the nation this summer. And then I start Friday in Philadelphia. And then I go to the UK and Ireland in September, and then 2 weeks in Australia, which I'm really looking forward to in October.
But City Winery in Manhattan this coming Sunday, June 3rd, and more signings around the country and the world. Like you said, all the info at jeffbuckleythebook.com. And Dave, I actually did see Jeff Buckley perform. It was a long time ago at Cafe Shinae.
Yeah.
Is that the place? The place was, first of all, it was tiny. But that night, I got there early. I think somebody from Columbia invited me, and I got to see him just sort of like plugging things in before, the show started. And then the label people came, the radio people came, the press people. It was just absolutely packed. But what a great – and that's really where it all started for Jeff, right?
Right.
The buzz, I should say, started, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no restaurants on that street or anything like that, so you'd have all these limousines there. I actually never saw him play at Shinae.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, I came on board December 93 when Live at Shinae, the EP, came out. And
Right.
I finished up the album Grace, put the band together, and then got him out on tour.
Right. And the average person does not know what being manager of an artist is like, but it's really like a 24-hour gig. You're like a manager, you're an accountant, you're a road manager, a travel agent, a psychiatrist perhaps even.
Absolutely. You actually manage the people around him.
Yeah.
Around the artist, more so than the actual artist, other than the psychology part.
Right. So how did you guys connect initially? Was it through the EP? Was it?
No, it was. I just finished the New Music Seminar, which was the largest conference at the time, and I was booking all the bands for it. And that was 5 days, 35 venues a night, 4 or 5 bands per venue.
I remember. Yeah.
I was so tired. And Steve Berkowitz, George Stein, the attorney, was managing him. And Steve Berkowitz, who was his A&R person at Columbia, said, we got to get somebody that has experience and somebody that really knows the road. And that's when he brought up my name. And I met him in October 93. Yeah, October 93.
Okay. And the stories are well known of artists that have died in their prime. They call it the 27 Club. Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain all died at the age of 27. Jeff Buckley was 31, but are you still amazed at the level of interest in Jeff Buckley? I mean, 21 years later?
Yeah, I think what's funny is Andy Wallace, the producer for Grace, I talked to him the other day, and he said to me that he didn't Nevermind by Nirvana.
Right.
And he said it used to be that they'd come for Nirvana. Well, now he says they come for Jeff because the record's so timeless. And he also came out in a time where it was grunge.
Right.
So it was a very different record.
It absolutely was.
It took a long time for it to get going. And he actually was bigger in overseas than he was in America.
The book is Jeff Buckley, From Hallelujah to the Last Goodbye, written by Dave Lory with Jim Irvin. And you waited a long time to do this book.
Yeah, it was, I just felt now was the time.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I wanted to put a stamp on his career. I really wanted a book that if somebody 100 years from now would go back and say, this is a book that is
it's like the book that you need
Right.
to read if you want to know about Jeff Buckley. And I read this really quickly. It was so good. And let's talk about Memphis, because I was actually in Memphis a week before Jeff passed away. We were doing a grand opening of the Hard Rock on Beale Street there. So we did that. I got home, and then I heard the news, and I was struck that was so weird that that's where he passed away, because Memphis is not Nashville. Memphis is, I don't know, it's Stax. It's also Elvis. It's also Beale Street, the birthplace of the blues. Martin Luther King, obviously.
Right.
And I was just struck by I don't know, of all the places for him to pass away, in a weird way that sort of made sense. I don't know. I mean,
well, he was going to record the album in Memphis. He was having a hard time when we came off the road because he couldn't go to his usual haunts in New York. He was always being bothered, and he just wanted to have a normal life.
right.
He actually even applied to be the butterfly keeper at the zoo. I mean, so it was like, okay, whatever.
Wow. In the book, you bring up observations people were making that Jeff's behavior towards the end was erratic. Like he was doing strange things, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was.
he always partied, though, but
Well, he wasn't partying there at the end, which we proved with the autopsy. And, he was, like I said in the book, he was purer than that. I mean, he dabbled in the cliches of a rocker's life, but, I didn't have the issues with him that I had with other artists.
yeah.
And, but Memphis, he was trying to put down roots. I think that's really what he was trying to do by buying the car that wasn't for sale, trying to buy a house that wasn't for sale. And I say in the book, I called him 2 days before he disappeared, and that's the only time he never called me back. And everybody was saying they were getting calls from Jeff. They hadn't heard from him in a long time. And then, ironically, when I came home from Memphis and hit my answering machine, there was a message to my daughter and my wife, and it said, "Play the music, play it loud, love Jeff." And the timer on the answering machine put it probably around 15 minutes before he walked out of the house.
River?
Yeah.
Wow. So did he, when they finally found him, was it on Beale Street?
He actually floated upstream and came in on Beale Street.
That's what I mean. It's just the birthplace of the blues. Right. I mean, W.C. Handy, and all that. We're speaking with Dave Lory. The book is Jeff Buckley, From Hallelujah to the Last Goodbye. Such a great book. From a manager's point of view, what was the career highlight for Jeff's career during the time you were working with him? Because in a very brief amount of time, he did some pretty amazing things, played some incredible venues around the world, met some of his rock idols, I think, even.
Yeah.
What would you think Jeff would say about that time period as far as career highlights?
Well, one of them was the Meltdown Festival in London. They every year get a pop artist to curate it, and it's classical music. And Elvis Costello was doing it one year at Royal Albert Hall. And I remember I was with my wife. We were going to Glastonbury, which is a big festival over in the UK. And I went into a classical, CD shop, and I said I need the song "Dido's Lament." And the guy was fairly old behind the counter, and he said, "For who?" And I said, "My male artist." He said, "No male can sing this." And then there was like a 17, 18-year-old kid behind the counter, and he said, "Who's the artist?" I said, "Jeff Buckley." He said, "He can do it."
Wow.
And then a couple days. So that was an event. Here comes Jeff out with his, chain belt, his Doc Martens that are all scuffed
East Village
up,
look,
right?
yeah.
The fedora and the white V-neck T-shirt, and everybody's in tuxedos and gowns, and he just starts nailing these songs.
Wow!
And their jaw just dropped. And then at Glastonbury, he made 100,000 people feel like an intimate venue. And that's when I knew he could do that, because we were going to bigger venues, and we were playing multiple theaters rather than go bigger. And so that was that showed me that he could do anything.
And it's hard to do that even for a band to play a stadium and get 70,000 people to feel like they're in a club. I mean, not many people can do that. What music has been released after Grace and after Jeff's passing? Because it seems there have been various compilations. Is there one that's sort of really nails for the true fan that might even be just finding out about Jeff right now? Is there one thing that people should get?
Probably the Grace box set that they did. There's some outtakes on that. Now, I don't listen to his music much, Jonathan.
Yeah.
It's just too painful. But I do have... I'm a little too close to it because I know what he approved, what he didn't approve. And so as a manager, you're used to protecting your artist. But I have a CD. The last two tours he did were September and February of 95, 96. And in September 95, Triple J Radio which is the alternative radio station nationally in Australia.
Right.
Did a multi-recording of the live show, and Jeff stayed behind and mixed it and mastered it. And so I have it in my car, and that's really what I listen to. And it's kind of like my inside joke where I say written by Jeff, arranged by Jeff, performed by Jeff, produced by Jeff, mixed by Jeff, more importantly, approved by Jeff.
Yeah. Bad company, bad company, bad company.
Right, exactly. So, but it's a phenomenal album, and it should come out.
Yeah, yeah. The title of the book references Jeff's two biggest songs, Last Goodbye and then the Leonard Cohen song, Hallelujah, which everyone covers now, or they have covered it a lot on talent shows. In fact, I don't know what show it was, but the song went to #1 again.
It was American Idol.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't see the show. It was just my wife and kids were watching it at the time and said, oh, this guy did Hallelujah. And then I was getting calls saying it's #1. And I said, oh, wow.
Yeah, amazing.
You gotta have some big cojones to do Hallelujah after Buckley's version.
Right, yeah, you really do. And I have to ask you about your time with some of your other previous clients, the Allman Brothers, for one. How did you get them to reunite after a 10-year hiatus?
Well, I was a tour manager in the 80s with heavy metal bands, the Dios, the Megadeth, Sabotage, and I earned a relation. I was known as a cleaner. I always got the messed up stuff, and I'd have to go in and fix it.
Right, the fixer.
Right.
Yeah.
So Johnny Podell, William Morris called me and said Dickey Betts, for 2 weeks, and his regular tour manager's not available. So I went out with Dickey. Dickey liked what I did. Danny Goldberg was actually bringing them back together.
Right.
And that took probably a year to do. And so I was the tour manager on the Dreams box set that came out in '89, and then Greg's management contract ran out, and I started managing Greg, and then Danny Goldberg handled Dickie, Butch, and J-Mo.
Wow.
So that's how we balanced everything else.
Yeah.
Danny and I could get in a room and say, okay, we were the diplomats.
Which led to Artemis Records, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was the president at Mercury Records when I took over International there.
Yeah.
Right after Just Death.
Right.
And Danny managed Kurt Cobain and Nirvana.
Right.
With Janet Billing. And there's no book written when you go through that period.
Yeah.
And, he said, you're part of a club now you don't want to belong to. But they helped me out. There's a lot of stuff that you just don't think about unless somebody's been through it. And they were very helpful during that time.
And I have to ask about your brief time with Courtney Love. You were managing her. And what year was that? What album was that?
That was America's Sweetheart. And a funny story, David Leitch was the president of Mercury Records. And I started up a company, got investments. We were going to roll up managers, et cetera. And it didn't last long because the money, the guy was bad. But anyway, Leitch and I were in Australia, and we came back to Hawaii to meet with Courtney. A publicist in the UK, who I know quite well, at Christmas, there was all these pictures of her on the front cover of Q magazine, shaving. Okay. And the publicist said Dave Lory would have never let that happen. So that's how I got introduced to her. But I'll never forget, I went to hear the music with her attorney, and I put my head between my legs. And she said, are you okay? I said, I really wanted to hate it, but it was so good.
Yeah.
And so when we landed in Australia, I went and picked up the house phone, dialed up to her room. She said, oh, you're that manager guy? I don't think I need a manager. I said, okay, great. I'm going to go play golf. And so we went and played golf, and we're sitting in the bar later that night, and she sends down Frances Bean and the nanny, and you could tell. I mean, she looked just like Kurt, right? So I guess it was about midnight, the bartender came over and said, Miss Love will see you now. And she walked in, and it was like we were talking before we got on camera. It was like the windows opened up and the breeze came through, and she's just walking in, and she looked like a star. She had the it factor. She looked like she was on a red
wind
carpet.
machine.
Yeah,
right.
And she sits down and starts talking. I say, hold it. I said, rule number 1, I fire everybody. Rule number 2, we're going to do it my way. And David Leitch, who's never managed, because he was always the president trying to get artists to like him, he said, excuse me, Courtney, can I see you over here, Dave? So this went over 3 nights. And then finally at the end, she said, all right, you can be my manager.
Wow.
So
Well, maybe there's a book there too at some point.
Well, I wasn't with her that long, 7 months, I think. So,
Yeah.
but it might be part of a book.
Right. Yeah. His name is Dave Lory. His new book, Jeff Buckley, From Hallelujah to the Last Goodbye. If you're a fan of Jeff Buckley or you're not, this is a fantastic book. Everyone should go out and get it. And Dave's going to be doing some book signings all around the city and the country. City Winery here in Manhattan this coming Sunday, June 3rd. More signings around the country and around the world. All the info at jeffbuckleythebook.com. Congratulations, Dave. This book is fantastic, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. Good seeing you again.
This is Out of the Box with your host, Jonathan Clark. Out of the Box, Sunday nights at 9 on Q104.3.